religious, the most well-respected people of his day in ceremonial religion. And Jesus said, you are like a whited sepulcher. A sepulcher being where you put dead people. White and plastered on the outside, very attractive, but he said inwardly, you're full of dead men's bones. You're not what you appear to be. And if I were to have squeezed this mustard bottle and ketchup came out or who knows what else, I would have been caught off guard because it looked like mustard. It had the appearance of mustard. I thought I was going to get mustard, but I get something else. I believe the Lord is telling us in James and throughout this series on joy that joy is the natural and expected outflow of a Christian under pressure. That is to be how we respond. Now, you may not respond that way, or you may even find out that there's something there that you didn't know was there. Don't be surprised. Jeremiah the prophet, Jeremiah who wrote 2 books of the Bible, Jeremiah and Lamentations, he stated that his heart was deceitfully wicked, and he summarized by saying, who can know it? I didn't even know that was down inside of me to react the way I did or to respond to this circumstance. And throughout Scripture, we find that the pressures of life are, in fact, God's way of refining us and revealing what's there so that we can bring it to Him and deal with it. Now, let's get back to James 1, and we're going to work through this idea of accounting it all joy. Consider what God has brought, trials and temptations, and then count it all joy. Now, to count, you have to have a summary, a knowledge of past experiences. Just like if you account your taxes, you look back on 2011 or 2010 and you reminisce or you remember what you did. We bought this, we purchased that, we got this income, and you summarize it, and then you have a balance, a bottom line. And for most of us, we hope that we get a refund. We hope that we are in a position to get something back. Well, God is always wanting to give you joy as the result of your trials. That's going to be His desire. He wants you to have joy. Jesus even declared that He wanted His joy to be in us. The joy of the Lord is our strength. My joy I give to you. For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross. So over and over, the Scripture is telling us that God's plan for His people is joy when they're under trial. Paul, in his life, we won't read, but Paul talked about that he was shipwrecked numerous times, beaten, left for dead, and he said, I glory in those things, in my infirmities, my trials. I find great joy in them, and the reason he could do that, and the reason you and I are to count it all joy, is because as you build up a library or reference of what God has done in the past, it should prepare you for a present or future trial. And I want to show you a living example of this in the life of David. And we're going to have to go back to the Old Testament again, so I've got you bouncing back, but now we're in Psalm 37. Go back to the Old Testament book of Psalms 37. Psalm 37, verse 23. And Psalm 37 is David, King David, making a statement of his life. Psalm 37 and verse 23. Verse 23 of Psalm 37, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young, and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. So when David gave an accounting of his life, now how many of you can identify with that? I have been young, and now I am old. I won't ask, I already got hands popping up. I wasn't asking, but if you're volunteering, you know that feeling. But David, in his life, and he lived a long time, he was able to say, as I survey, as I do my accounting of my life, from young man till now, I see God providing over and over. I've never seen the righteous begging for bread. I've never seen God's people left destitute. Now, that is a tremendous promise, and I want to make this tangible. Remember, for example, in the life of David, when as a young man he was brought to the battlefield, his father had sent him to bring provisions to his three brothers who were on the battlefield, and Goliath was mocking and taunting the armies of Israel, and King Saul and the men were shaking in their boots, literally. They were afraid to fight this warrior. He was awesome. He was the greatest fighter of his day, and he had simply said, let's not have both armies fight. Let's just have your best fight me, and whoever wins, wins. And if I win, then you serve us. If you win, we'll serve you. That's the deal. Well, King Saul, who was a warrior, he wouldn't fight, and all of David's brothers were assembled there. Eliab and Shema and Abinadab, from oldest to youngest, they're at the battlefield, and they won't fight. And David comes bringing some cheese and bread, just some snack food, and he sees Goliath taunting God's people, and he says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine, and what is he saying about God? He's mocking Jehovah?" And Saul and the brothers said, "Well, yeah, but look at him." And he says, when King Saul tells him, "You're a little boy. Go on back home. You can't do this." Even at a young age, David had already learned to account it all joy. Psalm 37 is later in his life, but even as a young boy, he'd already learned to have reference points. And that's what I'm going to try to help you this morning, to have reference points of God's provision. When David was brought before King Saul said, "You can't fight Goliath. He's been a warrior longer than you've even been alive. And he's 9 foot something tall, and he's got this spear and this incredible sword and shield. He'll make mincemeat of you." And David said, "But I can defeat him." And he begins to recite from his past that as a shepherd boy, maybe months earlier or years earlier from his youth, he said, "I was watching my father's sheep one day, and a bear came and attacked my flock. And I subdued that bear and killed it. God gave me the strength and the ability to kill a bear." And then he said, "And another time, I was watching the flock, and a lion came and grabbed one of the sheep, and I grabbed him by the beard and killed him. And so will be this Philistine." Now, I want to use David's simple story that he recounted to King Saul. He accounted past experiences, and then he used it for the current problem. So I want you to take past experience, gain perspective, and apply it to the current problem. And I don't know what your current problem is. It's a Goliath of some sort. It could be a Goliath health problem, the biggest health problem you've ever seen, and you've now got to deal with it. Or it could be the biggest relationship mess you've ever had. It's multiple family members, or it's multiple layers with grandpa down to grandchildren, and it's a big mess. Or it could be financial in nature with 2 commas in the figure. I'll put it that way. And if you don't know what that means about $1 million, okay? 2 commas is $1 million. 1 comma is how much? 1,000. We have those, but the 2 comma ones are huge. And so you may be facing a Goliath financial problem right now. And rather than let it do you in, rather than let it sink your ship, James says to consider or count it all joy. In other words, reminisce about what God has done in the past and then use it for your current or future problem. David was able to say, "You know what? I fought a bear. It should have killed me. I had no chance, but I won. I grabbed a lion by the beard." Now think about that one. He has that as a reference point, grabbing a grown lion that had a